welcome to this latest Nudgecast. I'm Tim Perkins, one of two co-founders at Nudge, and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined this morning by James Herbet. Hi James, how you doing?
Hi Tim, thank you for having me.
Excellent. And so tell us a bit about who you are and what you do.
So I'm James Herbet. I am the founder and chief strategy officer at Hastee. We are reinventing how people are paid and control their finances. What we do is we provide people cash flow by giving them instant access to the money as they've earned it. So no more waiting to the end of the month to receive the money you've already been paid. You can get it in real time as you earn it. And that provides people with cash flow to help ease financial stress. And on top of that, we layer financial management and education, why we're here with Tim, and other tools to help people make better financial decisions and make their money go further.
Brilliant, excellent. Well, guys, you could join us today. So perhaps if I just explain a bit about our relationship. So the seeds were sown in 2008, I think it was, when completely coincidentally we found that we were working in the same office on the same floor in Victoria, and we both now subsequently gone on to bigger, better offices. And so back then, what was your approach to financial education, James?
Well, I guess it was 2018 rather than 2008.
Did I say 2008?
You did, yeah.
It's my anniversary coming up, and that was then, so I'm distracted by that. My wife in the background.
I know we put in the hours that makes it feel like it's been 10 years longer than it has, but yeah, fortunately not. Yeah, no, we coincidentally in the same floor. We had a couple of mutual friends and contacts who thought they'd put us together. And it was the start of a great relationship where the businesses work very closely together. And I know my team and your team very much enjoy working together, and we're really trying to take that forward. And as I mentioned in my introduction, that a big part of what we do is upskilling people financially, because with a better financial education, better financial awareness, people can make better decisions, and better decisions ultimately will lead to improved financial control and better financial health.
Brilliant, yeah, and it's been really good, developing the relationship in particular over the last year. So I think we launched in about January or February this year. We're actively supporting almost 100,000 users, I think it is, across UK, Ireland, and Spain, and I know that we've got active plans beyond that. So it's been a great partnership so far.
Absolutely, and it's being very well received by the organisations we work with and their employees alike.
Yeah, brilliant. So, there's been some great innovations in the workplace financial wellbeing market over the last couple of years. Products like yours, products like ours, savings products, mortgage guidance. They're not necessarily all joined up though, is I guess my observation. What's your view, James, on the best way for employers to approach financial wellbeing support?
It's a big question. I think the key for me is that there are so many aspects to financial support and people's financial lives, and you're right that a lot of it's disjointed, and how can you try and pull all of it together? And by pulling it all together, so much about adoption is about the UX, the user experience, and making it much more central, and that's obviously a great thing about how we've combined use technology and use the UX to combine our products together. But if you can try and give people the interface they need when they need it, and it just feels kind of seamless, they're going to be much more likely to consume that information or to use that product or gain that knowledge and so on and so forth. There was a term that was coined a meeting I had a while ago, the consumerization of the workplace. And it's a really interesting one because actually, we're so attached to our phones now. It really is that central point. And the more aspects we can bring in to that phone in a succinct and seamless way, where you get the information you need when you need it, it's easy there, it's prompting you, then the more likely people are to use it and gain the benefit of it. And one of the things we've seen that no matter, actually interestingly enough, the statistics are, no matter whether the employee likes their organization that they work for or not, their employer, they normally trust them. And they trust them because you pay them when you say you're going to pay them. And that really is an absolutely vital part of that relationship of trust. And one of the things that we've found is we get very, very, very high levels of engagement within our app, within our technology, and that's down to a lot of time in spent in the UX and understanding how people behave and what they want to use and giving more products. partly down, I guess, to luck that we created interface right off the beginning. It was a good, very foundation that people really loved. But it's centered around that core behavior of people getting out of bed, going to work, or getting out of bed and going to their living room to work, depending whether they're working from home in this post-pandemic period. But, getting up, going to work to earn money. And, that ultimately it's that sort of hunter-gatherer mentality that is still at us as a core at a species level of, the idea is we go out there to hunt and gather, to put food on the table and a roof over our head. And that's what working is really now. And we link that, the reward for, pay with the effort. And by linking the two things together, it means that we have a really good high level of engagement with our users, with the workforce. And that also has massive benefits that they're more likely then to consume the financial education, use the financial management tools. They're more connected with that link between the work they're doing and the earnings they're making to help them budget better. And it's creating a much healthier, higher touch relationship between that work and their earnings, and then obviously using those earnings more effectively and consuming the wider product.
Yeah, and I guess key thing for me there is that idea of it being holistic and joining all of these different services up, and rather than competing, which is traditionally the way that perhaps under a flex benefit type arrangement, it's been about one benefit competing for another, but it doesn't work like that now.
Absolutely, and if you look around, all of the different products, look at the App Store as the perfect example. Apple isn't making all of its apps. It's providing a platform that is easy. It's the interface that people can then, get what they want and when they need it. Look at Amazon, they're not selling all of their products. It's a marketplace of lots of different products and so on and so forth. And I think one of the things that has, definitely grown, and 10 years ago, back in 2008, we wouldn't have been able to do this. The infrastructure wasn't there. But technology has allowed us to bring together more of these things and to center it more around the user. And I think that's the key thing, is the more we can center around the user to give greater transparency, greater visibility and greater control, the better they're going to be able to understand their financial choices and be more engaged. Yeah,
brilliant. And so I guess thinking about this from the employer's perspective, every report I'm now seeing, and this isn't just the UK, we're seeing this globally, is putting financial wellbeing support up there as a key employer focus. So the most recent report I saw was the Willis Towers Watson, the future of financial wellbeing, where they said 76% reported that their employees would value the organisation doing more to support their financial wellbeing. And really encouragingly for both of us, because this of course is the strategy we take, 52% of respondents said they're planning to provide their people with financial education nudges in the next 2 years. So yes, I think from our perspective, 5 or 6 years ago, some employers were a bit more wary about blurring the lines between work and home, but that's all gone now. What are you seeing from your clients? Are there any hurdles now, or people recognizing the opportunity they have? And you talked about trust earlier, the opportunity and perhaps the responsibility they have to help their people.
Yeah, I mean, thank goodness the penny's finally dropped, eh? I mean, it's taken a lot of time and education and awareness. We've definitely benefited from the foundations over the last, X years, where people are taking a better understanding of mental health. And since that has grown, and mental health in the workplace and mental health within society, the link between financial health and mental health is obviously, very, very considerable. I believe that the statistics are it's the single biggest, poor financial health is the single biggest cause of poor mental health. And as I mentioned, because of that relationship of trust that the worker has with their employer, the employer is in a really privileged position to be able to provide information that is not fake news, that can provide a real service that the employee can trust that they are not being given poor information. And I think that position of privilege is really important, that employers are able to use and then empower their workforce. So rather than being controlling and too paternal here, it's okay, look, we're going to give you the information, we're going to give you the tools so you can choose how to use it. And hey, look, we now realize that it isn't just okay. And particularly in Britain, we have the very stiff upper lip and we don't like talking about our finances. So it's taken time for that to come, but there is much more, there is really now this sort of movement towards it, and it's very, very encouraging. And I think ultimately, we're going to see some big strides with that. The adoption is still very low, relatively speaking. I think our study last year found, I think it was only about 18% of UK employers are offering any financial education within our particular product ourselves. Earned wage access is kind of globally known. The US is a couple of years ahead of us, really, in UK and Europe, but still in the US, only 5% of organizations are offering it. The predictions are it's going to go up to 20-25% within the next couple of years. And absolutely in the UK, we're seeing this awareness grow, and we're expecting that to catch up, partly driven by the global organizations that are now adopting it and seeing the benefits of offering financial education, earned wage access, and other products, and then wanting to apply that to their global workforce, not just their US workforce. But that's again, it's this corporate responsibility, and but I think beyond that, it's kind of almost corporate opportunity is a better way of doing it. They can be proactive and really do something to help that is meaningful. And let's be honest about it, it also benefits the employer. A financially healthier workforce is a more productive workforce. So the great advantage here is it's a win-win situation. The size of the pie only gets bigger by having a healthier, financially healthier, mentally healthier workforce that can be more productive, that are going to be more engaged, that are going to ultimately add more value to your organization, which then puts you in the privileged position to be able to employ more people, pay them more, give more financial products and well-being products to ultimately get into this positive multiplier effect that is great for the workforce and great for the organization.
Yeah, and I think there's been a big drive as well from a kind of diversity and inclusion perspective as well. We're hearing a lot now from, particularly globally, organizations for whom we're completing RFPs and what have you. We're hearing a lot more about the importance they now put on financial literacy, and realizing that literacy comes from a joined up strategy of education and supporting tools like Hastee. And there's even somebody gone as far as to suggesting this is a human right. And you look at some of the material that comes out from the likes of UNESCO or the UN. So anybody listening, if you Google UN 17 goals, you'll see goals 3 and 4 that they believe we need to achieve to support sustainable development are based on well-being and education. So I think there's a big drive there, and I think a lot of that's evidenced by the fact that socially conscious organisations are proven to perform better. So if you have an inclusive support for your people, you're going to be able to attract more people. They're going to be more happier and more balanced and more diverse and the rest of it. So that's important. And then thinking about COVID, I guess the last year, so you touched on it earlier, I think when you were talking about mental well-being, it'd be interesting to hear what change in behaviours, if any, that you've seen. I think from our own perspective, looking at how people's financial education has changed, it's been fascinating. Starting, I guess, in March last year, we saw people going from that learning about budgeting and saving and investing in kind of normal topics to a real knee-jerk reaction to people kind of bringing down the hatches, learning about government support. We saw a rise in the last year in people learning about avoiding scams. Really regrettably, we saw a spike in people learning about divorce and separation in September, October time, and then kind of debt and borrowing has come through. So there's a true barometer of the nation. Presumably you have similar data and experience from your users.
Yeah, it has been interesting, partly due to our relationship with our users, that our platform, our product is based on 3 buckets of information, effectively. So it's all about identity, who's working for who, time, when are they working and when will they otherwise be paid, and value, how much are they earning at that time and what are they going to get paid at the end of the month, so to speak. Now, one of our biggest user bases, most active users were those within the likes of hospitality and retail. And a lot of hourly and shift work and variable staff and gig workers were, very much our user base. And a lot of those were very, very badly affected by COVID, that their jobs disappeared, or because it was such a unique event, the workforce management software and the time and attendance software and rotoring and everything else was not set up to manage furlough. In fact, variable furlough is an incredibly difficult job that payroll departments have had to handle over the period. So, a lot of those users simply just were not able to use our product to draw their funds anymore, draw their earnings anymore. Although actually, interesting enough, they still stayed in the product to manage to check back and also to consume some of the education as well. So that was positive, that they still stayed engaged even when they weren't using it. And then we've kind of just seen how other people have used it. So the demographic of our users changed a bit because of an increasing number, relatively speaking, of salaried workers, and they tended to use it slightly differently. So they tend to be in the app, when withdrawing funds slightly less, but withdrawing slightly larger sums. Is kind of the way that they tend to use it. So the frequency is slightly lower, but the value of withdrawals. But it's not changed massively. One of the things we do see, which kind of makes a lot of sense, is that while our average users in the app 18 times a month, and they're doing that because they're monitoring, how much they're earning and balancing that with their spending. They are consuming financial education, looking for discounts, etc. But they withdraw funds 4.6, 4.7 times a month, so basically once a week. So your average worker is going, I want to get paid weekly. I manage my life weekly, which makes a lot of sense. And that hasn't changed that much over that time. No matter the different workforces and how people are behaving and everything else, that hasn't changed. And it actually goes back to sort of the behavioral psychology element to it, that as human beings, we tend to operate on a daily cycle because we have night and dark, and that just works for us. We tend to operate on a weekly cycle, kind of because religion's just been in the system and faith's been in the system for so many millennia that it's there. And then we work on seasons, and we work on seasons because it gets light and dark earlier and later. We have a slightly different diet, and so on and so forth. We don't really work on these arbitrary calendars as a species. So, people are striving to, manage their money almost daily. 18 times a week is roughly the number of days you work in it. 18 times a month is roughly the number of days. And then they're withdrawing funds weekly. So they're managing their finances weekly, but looking at it daily almost. And when you sort of take a step back and you look at it from that point of view, you go, well, that makes sense. And whether people are working from their living room or the kitchen or their bedroom, whether they're getting on a tube and on a bus and getting to work and they're still out and about, we've done a lot of work with the NHS and care homes, and that's been a big sector for us through the pandemic. We've really pushed our support for that, and we've seen how that's behaving. And of course, those people were absolutely front and center on the front line. We had a wave of people really using it. In the early stages of the pandemic, we saw a massive spike in usage as everyone was just bulk buying and stockpiling. And during that 2 weeks before you got locked down, you've got to buy that toilet roll before it runs out of stock, and boy, the pipe has that.
God, yeah, don't remind me.
So yeah, we saw some strange behaviours going on in sort of March and April last year, and then as everyone realised that actually there was going to be enough toilet roll, things settled down a bit, and we kind of got into the new norm, and that went back to that sort of 12 to 20 times a month in the app, 4.6 times a month withdrawing, much steadier usage. And kind of what we would expect, but the frequency is definitely increasing again now that we're seeing more people coming back to the workforce. It is being used very much within hospitality in particular. We've got a real problem in the UK at the moment with a combination of obviously furlough still there, people at the pingdemic as it's being called, but people not having to isolate because they've been exposed, and then on top of that you've got Brexit, and there was a very large portion of the workforce within the likes of hospitality and retail that were, from the rest of Europe, and that many of those have gone back due to the pandemic. Many of those have gone back due to Brexit, and I believe that a stat I saw recently was over 1 million of that workforce have disappeared from the UK, and they're expecting only sort of about 2/3 of it to return. Which is meaning that there is a real shortage of hospitality workers. And in my background prior to founding Hastee, my first business, I founded a company called Bright Sparks, and that was in the hospitality sector. It's actually where the light bulb moment of Hastee came from, having employed 20,000 people to work in events and hospitality. So it's an industry I'm very passionate about and very close to. And it's one where we're seeing real positive gains by by working with organizations who are using that to encourage people to sign up to, people haven't been earning for a certain period of time. They don't want to work today and not get paid until the end of August on a pay cycle. Actually, 3, 6 months, 6 weeks later, actually the ability of coming out of furlough to be able to work, get paid, and carry on life as normal and manage your finances is very powerful, particularly as we're seeing furlough being wound down.
I guess it's such a natural evolution, isn't it, to, you know, what's been accelerated over the last year with that kind of blurring of home and work and on demand and flexibility, and, you know, the rise in kind of self-service banking and so on. You know, it's such a natural evolution.
It's a movement we've seen for years. You know, the technology has allowed us, I mean, predominantly really driven by the smartphone, but we now live in a very on-demand economy. Be it your Ubers, your Deliveroos, you know, your Amazon Prime, everything is at you know, at your fingertips. You control your life through your smartphone, and you don't really wait for anything. And the pressures of that have meant that we're so used to that happening that we're not really ready to wait for anything at all. And the idea of earning money, getting paid on a monthly cycle doesn't align with those pressures. You know, businesses manage their cash flow more carefully than anything else. You know, cash is king is the old saying within businesses, and they have a range of products to do that. So what we did is actually go back 61 years, which is a crazy thing. We've become institutionalized in this monthly cycle, but it was only 61 years ago that was a change of act in Parliament that allowed companies to pay their staff monthly into a bank account. Before that, had to be weekly or more frequently. And that's because that was how it worked. You know, we go back almost, you know, go back centuries and centuries and centuries of a barter economy. And that link between effort and reward and people managing their lives on a daily or weekly basis is totally natural. So what we've done is kind of just, you know, through technology, we've taken that, gone back, you know, centuries almost, to appeal to that human instinct using technology and aligning that with what we have seen, which is this, you know, increased frequency, the on-demand economy, and, you know, everything being controlled through the smartphone.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, I think we're coming to time, so it's really good. Thanks for joining us. You know, on behalf of everybody at Nudge, it's a pleasure working with you guys. You know, we're really proud to be providing the financial education to your current and future users, and so pleased that you see financial education as such a core part of the offer. So thank you, James, and we'll catch up again before long.
Thank you, Tim, and from our side as well, it's a privilege working with you guys. We think it's a great product, and we look forward to many more years of our partnership.
Superb.
Take care.